stunning looks than swift.
This fixture 4 years back was match number 27 of the 2019 World Cup. Very few would have called a Sri Lanka win then, but that's what happened. It upset the apple cart and it left England needing to win all games if they were to live their dream of home World Cup success. 4 years on, in 2023, they meet in match number 25, and both teams have had almost the same campaign so far, and again find themselves both in a scenario where there isn't much room for error. England versus Sri Lanka is match number 25. Build up to that starts now on Maruti Suzuki Arena, presents ESPN Cricket for Matchday. It's a good afternoon to all our viewers, and it's a good afternoon from me for the first time to Shane Bond here in our studios. Lovely to see you, Shane.
Good to see you too, mate.
And we have the company from Sri Lanka of Farveez Maharoof. Farveez, good to see you again. Shane, I'll start with you.
Yash.
I'm going to start with you, Shane. Not many would have said at the start of this World Cup that England and Sri Lanka will meet in match number 25 and both will be sitting at the exact same spot.
Yeah, I think particularly of the defending world champions, I think most people would have picked them to be in the final four. But I suppose when you dig a little bit deeper into their squad, some of the experience, the amount of cricket they've played in the lead-up, a few issues around selection and not quite having that continuity, you sort of look now and perhaps think, well, wouldn't say it's not a surprise, but there's probably some reasons why they aren't in that top four, and both teams aren't just playing the consistent cricket required at this point to be sitting in that top four.
Yeah, Farveez, no shortage of similarities in the storyline so far. Cornered lions, you could call both the teams. But if you look at it from Sri Lanka, they did get their first win in their last outing. It's been 5 days after that. And they have to be looking at the points table and the way the results are panning out and think, hang on, we might have just won 1 out of 4, but a few more results and we are still very much in it.
Yeah, it's a World Cup where it's quite quite not predictable how it's panning out at the moment. Sri Lanka, yes, they huffed and puffed to beat the Dutch the last game, but Sri Lanka has not played their brand of cricket which they are known for many years. So I think it's a perfect time to play England. As Shane said, they are a team who's struggling. Lots of issues going around. So much selection, change has been happening in the last few games. So I think Sri Lanka, quietly will be thinking back of the mind, this is the best time to put more pressure on England and hopefully come out with the victory.
Yeah, and why is it that we think it is as even keel? The points table will show that to you, and we'll bring that up in just a bit. Both these teams have played 4 matches so far. Both have just the 1 win. In England's case, the campaign began with defeat to New Zealand and then followed up. We'll get to that points table later. You know the big drill, but what are the big talking points? We have to look at England first. Defending champions, so much was expected of them, and we haven't seen them turn up at all right now. Matt Roller has been trailing them through the World Cup, and he has sent this report in for us ahead of this game against Sri Lanka.
Joe Root described England's game against Sri Lanka as the first of 5 World Cup finals for them earlier this week. And even if they won't be eliminated with a defeat on Thursday afternoon, there will be absolutely no room for error, with games coming up against India, Australia, Netherlands and Pakistan. A pretty tough run at the back end of the group stage. Even if they won all 4 of those, which seems unlikely, they would only finish with 5 wins if they failed to beat Sri Lanka this afternoon. So, therefore, you can see where Root's coming from, where he says that England need to get on with it, start winning well. And as much as anything, they need to show the sort of resolve that they did in their 2 recent World Cup wins in 2019. They needed to win their last 2 group games to get through to the semi-finals after 3 defeats earlier in the group stage. And that produced 2 of their best performances of that whole tournament, beating India at Edgbaston and then New Zealand up in the northeast in Durham. Similar in the T20 World Cup after that defeat to Ireland at the MCG and a washout against Australia. They had no room for error in their last 2 games. They responded with a really big win over New Zealand in Brisbane and then squeezed past Sri Lanka in the last group game there. We all know what happened next in both of those tournaments in the knockout stages. So England really need to hope that they can dig deep, but obviously it's a significantly longer run in now to have to probably win 5 group games in a row to get through to the semi-finals. And a failure to reach that stage would be a pretty humiliating result, having come in as probably second favourites for this tournament in most people's predictions. Moeen Ali, their vice-captain, did a media briefing on Wednesday afternoon, and Moeen in some ways has summed up the tournament as a whole for England. He's their vice-captain but has only played in one out of their first 4 games, showing to some extent how they've lost their identity as a side. He offered so much balance to the side, generally from number 7, but it was one of 4 all-rounders sat on the bench when they lost by 229 runs to South Africa and Mumbai on the weekend, along with Sam Curran, Liam Livingstone and Chris Wokes. That used to be a real strength of England, having those versatile, adaptable players stacked in the middle order. Ben Stokes among them, of course, but he's not bowling in this tournament. Those players are out of form for the most part, and as a result, England had a fudge of a side on the weekend, which got absolutely drubbed. Sounds like they're going to change their balance today, and Moeen is expected to come back into the side, but he gave quite a scathing judgment on his teammates' performances so far, saying they hadn't enjoyed the tournament. They've lost some kind of spark, and he feels as though if they're going to go down, they need to do it playing true to the way that England have in white ball cricket over the past 8 years since their white ball revolution started in 2015. That promises then, if England are true to Moeen's word, that it should be an enjoyable game this afternoon at the Chinnaswamy, but the talking has been pretty good for England throughout this tournament. The performances haven't matched up to it. We'll find out this afternoon whether or not they will this time.
Always on the ball is Matt Roller. Our paths will meet soon later this week when we meet in Lucknow. I'm trailing India, he's trailing England, and I'd hope he's a little more cheerful. The news from the toss has happened and England have opted to bat. Bondi, in Chinnaswamy, that's not something we see too often. What do you make of that call?
It's a little surprising for me because Chinnaswamy is generally a good chasing ground, but on the flip side, England's chasing record's reasonably poor, so they'd be thinking, perhaps they're going to play a few more all-rounders today, back themselves to go out and play that brand that they keep talking about and put on a big score on the board.
Farveez, we'll have team news in a bit, but before we know what the balance of the side is, just your thoughts on the toss. Did you imagine you'd see England batting first?
It was a 50-50 call. I mean, looking at the last game England played against South Africa on a humid day up in Mumbai, they were found wanted, and you had bowlers like David Willey cramping up after a few overs. It just goes to show they would have learned their lessons from the last game, and possibly, Chinnaswamy, yes, it's a ground where most of the teams like to chase it down. But looking at the last game Australia played Pakistan, once you score 350, 360, it's going to be hard for the chasing team, especially Sri Lanka, because, hard-hitting players in the middle overs are lacking. That's why I think, some of the changes have been made also, which we'll talk about in a bit. But I think it's a no-brainer for me. Bat first when your back is up against the wall. Go out there, give the batsman the license to go out there and express themselves. That's where England are quite dangerous at. So I think Josh Butler has made the right call.
I think it plays into just reducing the sense of pressure, bat first and bat without any inhibitions?
Pretty much. You can bat at your own tempo and trust that you've got a big batting lineup with no scoreboard pressure. And we've seen teams during the tournament, even if they get to that 40 over stage around 246 and over, they've been able to pile on runs at the back end, 120, 130 runs to get to those massive scores. So an area of concern for Sri Lanka is their death bowling. So it's going to get a real test today against a pretty good England batting lineup.
Yeah, and what we've seen previously at Chinnaswamy so far, just the one game, which was last Friday, where Australia posted 367, and while the final victory margin showed 60-plus runs, Pakistan at one stage, 230 odd for 3 with 15 overs to go, might have felt they were in it. Having seen that, having seen everything, Farveez, we know that the common point is both bowling attacks are struggling. Before we know the team, who, according to you, has the better bowling mix to deal with the varied challenges that Chinnaswamy brings to a bowling unit?
I think both teams are equal going for this game when it comes to their bowling attack. I think Reece Topley's absence will be a big miss for England. But Mark Wood is due for some good spell coming in. Last game, he was taken for cleaners. I think 70-odd runs in 7 overs, and he has a point to prove. And with Sri Lanka, they'll be up against a strong batting lineup of England, and I think Dilshan Madhuskar and Rakasun Radha will have a lot of responsibility bowling with the new ball. And I won't be surprised if Mahesh Theekshana gets a bowl in the power play. Last game, I think he bowled just 1 over in the power play. But today, the temptation would be to use Mahesh Theekshana more, as it's hot and it's humid, and generally side-based movement at the Bengaluru stadium is not that much. So Sri Lanka, definitely, if you need to win this game, the first 10 overs is going to be important. It's a struggling batting lineup of England. You pick up wickets, you stay in the game. If you don't pick up wickets against a quality lineup like England, in a small ground, they could hurt you.
Yeah, and they could hurt you through this innings, Farveez, because the news we have, we're going to have the lineups out, and England have decided to throw all their batting depth into this outing. 3 changes England have made for this outing, and you see Moeen Ali back into the side, you see Liam Livingstone back, and you see Chris Woakes back as well. They come in place of Gus Atkinson, who's out, Reece Topley, who's out for the tournament, and as a result, Shane, you have a batting lineup which will have David Willey at 9 and Mark Wood, who was their best batter at Wankhede at number 10.
Yeah, I think Adil Rashid was at 8 in the last game. So look, it is a big, long batting order. They've gone in a must-win game for experience, which you can't blame them. I think Liam Livingstone's an important part of the team. He's a Glenn Maxwell type player who can change a game, so I'm pleased to see him back in. And I think Moeen Ali is almost like Josh Buttler's lieutenant. He's the guy who deals with the bowlers and handles that. We saw that in the T20 World Cup. And I think that's a big reason why he's back in the team, is to alleviate some pressure off Josh Buttler in those death overs in particular.
And while it may feel like, why are you getting extra spinners at Chinnaswamy, Moeen Ali does have experience because he's played for RCB, spent quite a lot of time at this ground.
Yeah, but it's an area that, you know, bowling under lights, it could expose England just with the 3 seamers, and again, their death bowling is an area of concern, so it's going to be interesting to see what the pitch looks like and whether it looks like it's going to take some spin.
Farveez, thoughts on how England have gone about this, and not just about this game, but the fact that you saw 3 changes going into Wankhede and now you've seen 3 more going into Chinnaswamy. It speaks of a team which isn't necessarily the most sure of what they're doing.
I think a bit of everything. I think this is the best 11 they could throw out at it. I mean, when you look at England playing well the last possibly 3 years or so, you know, they've always had plenty of all-rounders in the team. And, you know, this is their best 11 as far as I'm concerned. Yes, Sam Curran, a bit unlucky. I would have loved to see him as well, because Sam Curran, you know, whenever he played against Sri Lanka, you know, if my memory serves me right, he has done really well. So that's an option that they had, but they've gone with David Willey. And batting up to number 10, Mark Wood, the way he batted, he can call himself a new bowling all-round in that team. So it's pretty scary being a bowler looking at that batting order.
Would be a task for any bowling lineup. Shane Bond, I'm sure you wouldn't have fancied it when you saw a batting lineup going all the way up to number 10?
No, it's a big batting lineup, and it's a dynamic, and they've talked about the way they're going to play in particular, so you'd expect them to come out and be looking to throw the first punch against Sri Lanka, put them on the back foot, and if they get a good start, you know they're going to keep going long and strong, because as you said, their number 11 batsman, Adil Rashid, is more than capable with the bat.
All right, we've got the Sri Lankan lineup ready as well, and it's a throwback lineup because Farveez, Angelo Matthews is back. The old warhorse returns, called last minute back into this World Cup squad after the spate of injuries that have surrounded Sri Lanka, and he returns to the team in place of Dushan Hemantha, who had replaced Veralage in their last outing against Netherlands. It's also a return to the playing 11 for Lahiru Kumara, and Sri Lanka will have Angelo Matthews slated in at number 7, and then you've got Tikshana, the 3 seamers in Madhushankar, Rajitha and Lahiru Kumara. Farveez, take us through that side, but before you do, take us through the prospect of seeing Angelo Matthews at a World Cup still.
As expected, if Angelo Matthews comes to the 15, he should be playing in the 11. There's no point to keeping him outside, and he has replaced Charmik Karunaratne at number 7. So it goes to show that Angelo Matthews' role will be that finisher role, possibly bowl 5 overs. I mean, it'll be hard to see Angelo Matthews bowling 10 overs with his fitness issues, but he will definitely fill in with 5 overs if he can and if he's able to. And Sri Lanka needed experience in that late middle order. Before the last game, Dhananjay De Silva at number 6 has been failing, and the last game he got a 30. But still, Sri Lanka, I think, has gone for comfort at number 7, getting that experience of Angelo Matthews. So he'll possibly bowl 5 overs, play that finisher role. And 3 seamers, that's quite surprising for me. And I understand why they've gone with 3 seamers. Chinnaswamy Stadium, you know, small grounds, and England play spin really well. You know, they had the option of bringing Dunitwel Lalage in, possibly batting at number 8 and bringing that left-arm spinner, because so many right-handers in the top order of England, but they have opted to go with 3 fast bowlers. That's a bit of a tricky call. I'm pretty sure they would have, you know, argued about it at the number 8 spot who's going to play, but they have opted to go with 3 seamers. But I feel, you know, Angelo Matthews have really worked hard to get to this position. Yes, he hasn't played any white ball cricket for a while, but he has never given up training-wise, and he always kept saying in his interviews that he would like to play the 2023 World Cup, and he's training towards that, and he had a decent LPL. He was one reason why his LPL team won the championship. So, credit to the player. He has worked really hard. At 36, most of the players, they will be, just going through the motions. Whereas Angelo Matthews have really worked hard to get back to form, get back to full fitness, and he was just waiting for an opportunity, and maybe he can be the difference what Sri Lanka has been looking for.
You'd feel like if this were any other player, you'd almost feel like you're throwing them in uncomfortable situations. He's not someone who's bowled a lot for many years, and now this is a role where it requires some bowling. He's also not someone you're accustomed to seeing as low as 6 or 7, which is where he'd be batting. But is that where Sri Lanka are hoping just the experience takes through?
I think coming into conditions that are hot, it's a lot to ask him to bat higher and then do a lot of running, particularly now that Sri Lanka are chasing. So it's a limited role. Sri Lanka gone back to Kamara and Matthews, which is experience as well. And I get the sense by looking at that lineup, they're setting up to chase anyway. They've decided we're going to go with 7 frontline batsmen, try and limit the damage with England, who are set up obviously to bat first. And so it's a battle of probably different tactics, and we're going to see who comes out on top.
Yeah, and he did say, Angelo Matthews, in the lead up to this game, that he is all ready to bowl. And it takes me back to one of the sights of the 2019 World Cup, which I'm sure Farveez remembers. He hadn't bowled for a very long time. I think it was 2 years since he'd bowled. And in that game against West Indies, comes on with Nicholas Pooran having scored a century, taking the game away, gets him out first ball. So you're hoping for more of that today.
That was the last tour as well up in Durham. I remember that game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's quality, isn't it? You can't replace experience and quality. That's what Angelo Matthews is all about. I mean, yes, he had his injury issues, and while you're injured, Shane and myself, we know that when once you're injured, come back to the team, it's very hard to perform to the level what you used to be. So with Angelo Matthews, it's been the case, and Sri Lanka has been looking for that difference at number 7. Dasun Shanaka unfortunately couldn't do it; he got injured. Chamika was given a couple of games. He couldn't do much, and it's quite unfortunate to miss out in a place in the 11. But you understand when Angelo Matthews is in the squad, is a no-brainer. He should be in the 11. So hopefully, this can be the difference what Sri Lanka is looking for to change their fortunes.
Just looking at both the 11s, it's quite a curious contrast of combinations. You've got one side which has gone less on spin. Sri Lanka have removed a spinner, added the seamer. You've got the other side which has gone heavy on spin, and yet it's the side that's heavy on spin which will be bowling second.
Yeah, I don't think you can go into a game at Chinnaswamy with 2 seamers. And I think even England going in with 3 seamers is a little bit of a surprise for me. So maybe it's the nature of the wickets, perhaps a little bit dry. But I think England, again, have gone for that combination that gives them depth in their batting so they can continue to play in the way that they want to, especially when they bat first, where, over the last period of time, that's where they've had the success. They've gone out and batted and put huge runs on the board and made it nigh on impossible for teams to chase down. So when you're not in form and you've been struggling to get the first opportunity to bat in a ground like Chinnaswamy, it's the perfect time to go in, and that's what happened for Australia, and England will be hoping it's exactly the same for them.
Yeah, and just to add what has come in from the pitch report, Ravi Shastri said that the pitch today might be a little bit on the slower and drier side, said there could be some turn as well, which means it wouldn't be one-way traffic for batters. Right, let's look at the England lineup. While they've gone for numbers and batting all the way down till 10 or 11, you would say, if you're an Adil Rashid fan, they will need the individuals to step up, and you have to look first up at the skipper. Farveez, Jos Buttler's numbers present a very curious case. I think, close to no overseas batter has dominated the IPL, much like Jos Buttler has in the last 5 years. And yet when you look at the numbers on the screen, you'll find that in ODIs in India, Buttler has strangely struggled.
I think batting late middle order is not suiting Josh Buttler. I mean, he's dangerous in the top order. We have seen how he has dominated IPL batting in the top of the order. So I reckon if Josh can get himself up at least to number 4, number 5, and try and dominate, because I'll tell you with experience, in the last series I played for Sri Lanka, Josh was somebody that scored so much runs against Sri Lanka, and every time he has played Sri Lanka, he has made runs. So this may be the game that Josh Buttler can come up the order and bring that A game to himself, and once he gets going, no bowling attack can keep him quiet. So I just hope that for the cricketing sake of it, not Sri Lanka's sake of it, that Josh Buttler will come good. But he's going through a lean period. You've seen him how he has gotten out in the last few games. It's unlike Josh Buttler, so he's clearly going through a bad patch. But overall, I think looking at that batting order, just not Josh Buttler. There's so many quality players, and Sri Lanka is quite aware of it. And it's all important to pick up wickets against England. If not, Sri Lanka is looking down the barrel.
Is that something you'd consider, a move up the batting order?
No, he's their finisher, and I mean he's been an integral part batting at 5-6 and scored a lot of runs in that position at a really high strike rate. So that combination of Butler, Livingston is almost the sort of David Miller Klaassen combination for England. So I don't think they'll move him. I know it says the stats are lower. You have to remember he's coming out to chase 380. You know, it doesn't tell the full story. He could have, some of those games he could have come out to bat with 2 overs to go and got out. So stats you've got to dig a little bit deeper before you say it's, you know, he's dipping in form. I think if he gets the chance to bat for 10, 12 overs on a flat surface, there's no more dangerous a finisher than Jos Buttler. So no, I'm not too worried about his form. I think, you know, he's too good a player not to score runs consistently.
The other player England will be hoping arrives at this World Cup is Jonny Bairstow. He's had his troubles since he returned from injury. He had that long layoff, and if you look at his ODI numbers since, they're a patch of the kind of ODI batting we'd got accustomed to seeing from Bairstow. Yep,
and I also think, even though David Malan's record's exceptional, you know, he would be accustomed to batting with Jason Roy, who was a very dynamic opening batsman, so whether that's having some sort of impact as well. But yeah, that injury was such a serious injury. He hasn't just quite found his mojo since coming back. England haven't played a lot of ODI cricket as well. You look at someone like Chris Wokes, I think he's played 9 ODIs this year and only 9 ODIs in the 3 previous years. So that's why they have struggling with their combinations. They just haven't had a lot of cricket together, and I think Jonny Bairstow is one of those that's just trying to get that mojo, whereas in the 4 years leading up to 2019 they played a lot of cricket together. They're a very settled side and they knew exactly how they wanted to go about it. Just doesn't quite feel like that for them this time.
When you consider Bairstow and the kind of run he is in, Farveez, at Sri Lanka, what would you be thinking as your opening plans? Would you stick to the seamers, or is this one of those games where, given his slight lack of confidence, you want to unleash Theekshana at him?
I think ideally I would like to go with the 2 seamers just to see whether there's any movement, because there's plenty of grass in the middle of the pitch and in the good areas. There are less grass close to the crease. That's where I think Ravi Shastri in his pitch report did say that it might be slow for the spinners, because close to the batting crease there are bare patches. But with the 2 fast bowlers bowled really well in the last game, set up the victory against Dutch, I reckon Sri Lanka will probably go with Kasun and Dilshan with a new ball, and Dilshan try to swing back in to Jonny. I mean, that's one area that you know, Jonny has been quite vulnerable. Left arm ball, swing back in. So that will be the change. But in case if there's no movement and you know, it's a flat track, I like to see Mahesh Theekshana as soon as possible against Jonny Bairstow, because mystery spinners have had success against Jonny.
How would you go?
Yeah, I think that's the way I'd go. The 2 seamers were excellent in the last game. I think you know, and I think England can be a little bit wary in the first 2 or 3 overs. And the back end of the power plays where teams have accelerated. So that's where Theekshana can come in and look at if England are trying to accelerate, gives an opportunity to take wickets as well. So I think to get a couple of overs of some spin out in the power play would be good.
Based on what you've seen, you expect that early assistance in the afternoon for the seamers?
I don't expect, all through the tournament, if you've seen swing, it's been relatively minimal, so I'm not expecting to see a lot of swing. You know, you might get a little bit for a couple of overs, and most teams have decided to play reasonably circumspect in the first couple of overs, just to have a look. Outside of that, I think it's going to be a pretty good conditions to bat.
Diving a bit deeper into the Sri Lankan bowling, if you're looking at the playing 11 and you're wondering how Sri Lanka, playing a World Cup game in India, have just one out-and-out spinner and Dhananjay De Silva to go with Theekshana, it is also a factor of test spinners having had a really troubled time. It feels strange that Sri Lanka would struggle as much. You would have thought there are other teams who would fare worse, but Sri Lanka so far this World Cup, their spinners have had it really tough.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, one-day cricket's tough for spinners, I think, with 4 fieldsmen out, and I think we've seen that across the board. There's a few games ago we were talking about Adam Zampa struggling. You know, we've been talking about, obviously, the Pakistani spinners are struggling. And also you've got to remember the nature of the surfaces that you're playing on. I mean, you look at Sri Lanka have played a high-scoring game against Pakistan, so those figures are always blown out a little bit. So, look, Theekshana's a quality bowler. He's quality in these conditions. And Chinnaswamy traditionally will tell you that it's a tough place to bowl spin because the boundaries are so small. So that's why they've gone with the balance of the team they had, obviously the experience with the bat. But you've still got 2 quality bowlers, and it's a little bit more experience now with Kumara coming back into the team as well.
The other area of concern, Farveez, you already alluded to this, has been death bowling. That you get a look at the death bowling numbers and it doesn't make for pleasant reading. How would you plan it for this game at Chinnaswamy, especially if it were to be a situation where, say, England are firing and they have wickets in hand going into the death?
And that's why I said it's very important to pick up wickets. The death over struggles has no secret there. I mean, Sri Lanka has struggled pretty badly with inexperience of Dilshan Madhuska in the death overs, as well as Kasun Radhi. He bowls really well with the new ball and the middle overs, but come the death overs, he has struggled as well. So those are the two bowlers have to take that responsibility. So I reckon to keep England quiet, you need to pick up wickets, and especially players like David Malla and Joe Root, who will like to bat through the innings and be that anchor. So I think those are the players in Sri Lanka should target and try and get them out and get those big hitters to come in early and try and exploit them pretty easily. But I reckon death overs is going to be a crucial factor in a small ground, in a wonderful batting pitch. It's going to be tough work, but for Sri Lanka, I think if they don't pick up wickets, England will be banking on some heavy hits in the latter order.
And there's also the return of Lahiru Kumara for this game, and I'd almost been crowded out by all the England changes and Angelo Matthews returning. So I do have to ask you, Farveez, because last time around in that game against Australia, you did speak about how he's looked rusty, he's not looked the greatest, and yet he's back at this stage of the tournament. Is that a move you agree with? And what does he need to change to find the effectiveness which has been dearly lacking so far at this World Cup, including the warm-ups?
Yeah, first of all, there's no other backup in the 15 as a fast bowler. Matish Patirana was replaced by Angelo Matthews, so there's no backup fast bowler to play in that spot. So Sri Lanka has no choice but to play Lahiru Kumar. And, as I said in the last game against Australia, he looked rusty. He just wanted to bowl quick, and he was found wanted. He doesn't have much variations to survive in ODI cricket, especially playing in the subcontinents. That's where, he can be a bit vulnerable. But I was surprised. I'm a little bit surprised because I would have loved to see Dunit Wellalage coming at number 8. I understand why Sri Lanka has gone with the fast bowler, but looking at Ravi Shah's pitch report, as it can be a bit slow, close to the batsman's crease. Dunit Wellalage could have been a good option, left-arm spinner batting at number 8, and especially when you're chasing down a score in an ODI, you need batting depth. And at the moment, Angelo Matthews at number 7 and 9, 10, and 11. Is 8, 9, 10, 11 doesn't make a good reading. So if Dunit was there, number 8, your batting line will be quite longer. So that's a bit of a tricky call, but Sri Lankan selectors have gone with, and hopefully it does pay out in a good way. But for me, Lahiru Kumar has a big role to play, especially coming in as a first change bowler. I don't think any movement will be around at the Sinnaswamy Stadium. He got to make his experience count and try and use his variations if he has any.
Put on the bowling coach's hat. If you're speaking to Lahiru Kumara, all the troubles, everything you know about him, and now at Chinnaswamy against England, what are you telling him in the lead up to this game? You just got to bowl straight. And Mark Wood's the same. If you look at Mark Wood's record in one-day cricket, he averages 40. There's a reason, perhaps a slight lack of variation. There's no swing there, and people can use the pace against you. So they would have brought him in still with the extra pace to try and have at least what they feel is an X-factor wicket-taking bowler in the middle, perhaps can use the short ball. But we've seen in this tournament when players like Harris Ralph have come in who've bowled quick and offered width, it's been a disaster. So it's a pretty simple plan. Attack the stumps, bowl straight, use your bouncer and mix your pace up. And if you do that, then at least you give yourself a pretty good chance of success. Right, so that's most of the setup done for at least the first half of this innings. There will be a lot more, obviously, to build ahead when Sri Lanka come out to chase, because England have had their own bowling troubles. We're going to wait to that. Might help to see what kind of score they have to defend. We will be joined by these two gentlemen then, but before I let you go, we have to do the usual.
Yeah.
Let's go to Farveez first. We'll take the neutral word later. Farveez, how much are England scoring here?
I'm a bit not sure in this case. I'm going to go 2. Either England will get bowled out under 250 if they have a recently bad day. If they have a good day, it's going to be 375 plus.
Wow.
Oof. Oh.
Talk about covering the spectrum. Safely played. Well done, Farveez.
I think Sri Lanka will be happy if they keep England to anything under 330. I think if they do that 330, 340, they'll feel like they're a chance looking at the balance of England's bowling attack. So they're going to have to work really hard, but I think if they walked off the field and England had scored 330, they'd be reasonably comfortable.
And anything under 300, you'd feel the chase is more towards Sri Lanka?
I think if they score under 300, they should win. Sri Lanka, yep.
Giving me an exact number for this innings?
343. There's an exact number.
Perfect, thanks. You found yourself somewhere in the middle of Farveez's wide range. Thank you, gentlemen, for your company this afternoon. Look forward to being joined by you through this day in what is such an important game for both these teams. It's not yet knockout territory. There's a good chance 10 points, even without net run rate, you go through. There is still a slight chance that 8 points might be enough for a team finishing in 4th. But obviously, none of these teams want to leave it to that chance. So all to play for. England versus Sri Lanka. Match number 25 is all set to get underway. Be sure to track the game and all the scores, all the updates on the ESPN Cricinfo mobile app, which if you haven't downloaded, you can rush yourself to the Play Store or the App Store and get it. We've got Matt Roller on the ground. We've got all our ball-by-ball commentators tracking this game. We're hoping to see a cracker at Chinnaswamy. Be sure to follow it and be sure to join us as soon as the first innings is done. We'll be back here on Maruti Suzuki Arena, presents ESPN Cricinfo Matchday.
Stunning looks, then swift.